Hello and welcome back to the Coffin Lounge podcast. I'm your host, Vampire Kitten, and today I'm here with Erick Ramos. Hi, how you doing, Erick?
Hey, doing all right, thank you.
Erick is a producer of themed events in the Kansas City area and promoter, as well as a musician who, your band is the Black Vatican, and they produce like gothic, symphonic. It's beautiful. I've been listening to your music all morning. It's a lot of fun. How did you get started doing like big events? Like, how did you kind of go about that?
Well, I started about, I'm gonna say almost 3 years ago. Um, and honestly, it wasn't even my initial idea. Around the time, I was barely getting involved with the alternative scenes here in Kansas City, and it was fun to be in and such. It is fun to be in, but um, then I started having ideas like, well, I want to throw events like this, but they don't exist. I want to go to events and parties like this or that, but they don't exist. So me and a friend at the time were like, let's just let's make our own then. Um, and at the time was also to help out my band, Black Vatican. But it then started changing into a more of like, well, I wanted to just solely help out the band, even though it could always do so. I wanted to just make events for everyone else. I'll worry about my band business later. Um, so then it started changing themes. So now we hit on more like we would call it like the lighter alternative scenes. So that's really how it started. Really, it's just an ambition that led for something I'd honestly say is a little bit selfish. But then it just was like, I don't want to work. I don't want to tie band business my with my other business, you know. So I'll keep those separate.
So when you say that you have different alternative kind of groups coming to your events, I noticed, so you have an anime night, you've had, I think you did Cat Girl, Halloween, I think you've done a Vocaloid, if I remember correctly. You've done all sorts of,
Hmm.
what are some of your favorite themes?
Favorite themes would have to be definitely would have to be the Vocaloid nights. Those are fun, and the Cat Girl or the Nico nights is what we call them. Um, those would have to be my favorite ones because the music itself is they're very, of course, they include nightcore, but also they include a lot of modern day kind of, how would you say, it's a modern day of like a sensation, in other words, internet sensation kind of style of music.
Right.
So that's what a lot of people like. I like it as well, definitely. And the kind of vibes that brings, that invites a lot of people. Anyone and anyone who has a social media site or a social media platform, they come out and they express their vibes, and I love it. So I would say that would be my favorite.
I'd have to say, like, of your events, the more like poppy events are kind of fun because like they remind me of do you remember Happy Hardcore, right? Like,
Hmm.
yeah, it sort of has that like vibe to me, and the peoples have that sort of vibe to me, which I really think is super cool. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of people, there's not a lot of places that do that sort of thing anymore, so I feel like you're filling a niche that is kind of what people want, especially in this area. So you kind of decided that your entertainment sort of production thing has kind of taken the forefront of everything. Um, so are you planning on doing like darker events, or is it just going to be more like the anime, the cat girl, all that sort of stuff? Are you going to continue down that path?
Oh yes, we'll definitely hit on the darker scenes for sure. Um, it's something that's been in our minds for a while, and it's almost somewhat inevitable. Um, we do like the lighter alternatives and such, the lighter alternative scenes, but the darker alternatives is something that's honestly like me and half of my crew grew up with. Honestly, let's be honest, like how we mentioned earlier, I am in a gothic symphonic metal band, so it's gonna happen. I love that kind of aesthetic. I love the style. I love the culture. I love the fashion. love everything about it. So we do already have a couple of things in mind and a couple of places in mind as well to um, create the best events for it. So right now it's just a matter of some negotiations with some venue owners.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's always that going on in the in the like behind the scenes. People don't realize how much work it actually takes to like run an event.
Hmm.
I think it's really cool that you're kind of trying to cater to every little sort of alt scene. This podcast is, I want to kind of highlight a lot of the various alt cultures, alt scenes, not just like goth or like dark scenes. I want to highlight, professional cosplayers and people that play board games for a living, that sort of thing. So I think it's really cool that like you kind of touch on things that aren't necessarily like most of those genres don't cross over very often. And what you've done is you've taken all of these genres and you've crossed them over, and people just come and they enjoy them whether or not they're like into them, which I think is kind of awesome. So what are some of your favorite, I guess if we had to like dissect the communities, what are some of your favorite like alternative communities, like music genres and lifestyles and I guess fashion, because that's a big part of it nowadays.
I would definitely have to say, of course, the anime community, the anime cosplay community. Personally, I'm not a cosplayer myself. Some people will call me a poser for that, but I don't care. But I always appreciate like the effort that people put into with their cosplays. Now, I'm always the type that would appreciate any kind of like motive or will to accomplish something. If I see someone accomplish anything, whether it's a small goal or a long one, even including creating a cosplay, the perfect cosplay for themselves, that is something I like to see, and that's something I always appreciate. So definitely like the cosplay and anime community. Um, I definitely like the darker alternative, the goth scene and such. I've always let's just be upfront. Halloween's always been my favorite holiday
I
forever.
mean,
So
yeah.
um, yeah, so it explains a lot. I always liked how they bring about the beauty in the darkness. That's why I like to define goth. And I think that's maybe like a very general definition of it. Finding the beauty in the darkness, and that's what the goth scene likes to do. Everyone dresses up dark, spooky, scary to some. At the same time, they look badass doing it. So,
Right, there's so many different subgenres of goth. I think it's really interesting that how many new ones have come out. How do you actually, I have a question for you. It's kind of drama.
oh boy.
um in the last few years, a lot of there's e-girls, right? You know what e-girls are, obviously. How do you feel about the e-girl aesthetic basically being just like pastel goth?
I mean,
Because that's, I mean, if you break it down, that's what it is. It's just pastel light
yeah.
goth. Is it, do you consider e-girls goth, or do you just consider them generally alternative even though they kind of dress like pastel goths?
Honestly, it depends on, I don't know, I guess from there you just gotta maybe look at them in a personal level, like, because from what I see in the e-girl community, e-girl, e-boy community and such, they definitely take different pieces of alternative fashions and put them in together because there's definitely anime related in there.
Oh yeah.
You see a lot of e-girls with the cat ears and such, the collars. Um, but then with the collars and such, that can also be transferred to a little bit of goth in there. So they add a little bit of goth in there to put some spikes on their collars if need be, fishnets. And they also add a bit of the rave kind of style in there.
That's true.
So I don't know, maybe e-girls has, or the e-girl fashion, like, we could just call it e-fashion maybe. Um, Maybe they have their own style because they already blended in three different subgenres of scenes.
I
So,
guess that's a good point, is that they kind of have blended so many subgenres that they've become their own little amalgam of things. Okay,
hmm
that's an
and
interesting take.
yeah, and it's kind of like saying like cyber goths. It could be considered like its own thing in a sense because they do have a shit ton of rave,
True.
rave attire. They have a lot of goth attire, and they also have like a bit of steampunk and a little bit of regular punk. So yes, like cybergoth is like somewhat of its own thing in a way as well.
Would you categorize an e-fashion under goth or more anime, like cosplay fashion?
Ooh, do. Since a lot of it is definitely pastel, like how you mentioned. Um, ooh, I think it just comes down to what most subcultures really drive on, which is music.
Right.
I think it'll drive on more on what their music preference is,
Oh, that's a good
and
point
that
too.
yeah, and that I honestly do not know. It comes down to the personal level. For all we know, if we see someone with e-fashion and they just love nothing but country, I have no idea where to categorize them, you know? So I wouldn't want to, I don't want to put myself in those shoes of putting
So
someone like, oh, you belong here,
with
you belong there, and such.
e, I'd say that's probably, if we had to guess, that's e alternative.
E alternative,
E
yeah.
alternative. I mean, I don't know where else to put them. If we had to label e alternative. So, what are some of your favorite subgenres of like? Because obviously you like the goth and all this other stuff. What are some of your favorite subgenres of like goth fashion and goth music?
Fashion would have to definitely be Victorian. I
Okay.
love Victorian. With my band, we mix up our style with Victorian and a little bit of modernism in there. Like like our uniforms, they're very Victorian inspired, but then we'll add some like excessive chains or spikes or even some fishnet shirts in there, just to make it a little bit more modern. So yeah, Victorian fashion, vampiric fashion. Um, I've always loved the cybergoth fashion, but I can't do it because they have those like those big ass. Can I cuss on this?
You can
Actually,
cuss on this
okay,
podcast.
just in case. I don't know if it's rated
We've
E
had
for
worse
everyone or
on this
so,
podcast.
but you know they have like those big ass trip pants with the
The
it's baggy
chains
as
and the,
hell.
yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could shuffle dance as quick as them. So that's the only reason I probably don't dress that way because I can't play the part almost. You know?
Yeah, I know. I see them and I'm just like, how? That's got to be a workout. Because you've got
Hmm.
like fat pants or like the big the trip pants. They have to
Hmm.
be, I know they're at least a few pounds, right? Plus, you've got all the chains and all the other stuff. When you get fully suited up as like a goth in any goth, it doesn't matter. It's like so much weight. It's like it's like
Hmm.
an exercise in
It's like,
itself. All you
yeah,
got to
it's
do
not
is
fun being goth in the summer.
get your chains on and go for a walk. You'll lose weight. It's a good exercise. So, so going back down to that, what are some of your favorite like? I guess if we had to pick apart communities, what are some of your favorite communities? Like who do you like? Just is a good time. Like you're at a party or you're at a con or whatever. If there's a party for all of these people, which party would you go to?
Oh boy, that is a tough one.
I can tell you mine if you want to think about it for a second.
Yeah, what's yours?
So I found out that like cosplayers are cool. Love cosplay parties. Awesome. Those are the cosplayers. They know how to party. Nerds, like little gamers, like at like CES nerds, and I say nerds loosely because I am one too. Um, like CES
Hmm.
or E3 or whatever. Those guys don't get out very much. So when they do, they like to party hard. And I love like TwitchCon parties. I love like CES parties. They're always like really great, especially when they're in Vegas. Like so fun. And then I'd have to say of like my top like sub genre of people, furries are really fun. Furry parties, so fun. They are just hilarious. Like, have you ever been to a furry party or like kind of experienced that?
I have not, but we're actually thinking of maybe throwing something for them in the near future.
That'd be cool. I mean, who
Hmm.
knows? I don't know what the turnout would be, but you know,
Me neither.
that's an idea. I mean, it's worth a shot, right? Do it once, see what happens, because you could get a huge turnout.
Yeah,
So, what are yours? What are your favorites? Who do you like to party
I will
with?
have. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with you in the whole sense of like the nerdy community because like Um, you said it best yourself that these people are very introverted. They hardly ever go out. So when they go out, they
They
go out
go
with a
out.
bang,
Yeah.
almost literally, you know. So like I remember like we had a small party at my sister's place, and we're all nerds for Star Wars. So I think it was the one of the newer movies that just came out. But we're just rewatching all of them, from the first one to the last, and we're starting to play drinking games, of course.
Oh.
And it was ridiculous. Our first and last mistake was, all right, let's make this drinking game. So when the Phantom Menace comes on, we're like, all right, every time they say the Force, we got to take a shot.
Oh
And we're like,
no.
our dumbasses thought like, yeah, how many times did they even say that? And yeah, we found out not even halfway through the movie, and then somebody else like we're already drinking really hard. We're in cosplay too.
That's fun.
Um, um, some of us had like those fake small lightsabers that you can get like at a dollar store. So we started dueling with those, drunk and such. Then the next movie comes on. All right, Attack of the Clones. Um,
You didn't keep drinking, did you?
yeah, and then
Oh no.
then our
Oh
dumbasses said,
no.
one of our dumbasses said, "All right, every time a clone trooper dies, we gotta take a shot."
No. I bet you guys didn't make it. 10 minutes.
No, yeah, we're gone.
Oh, that's funny. That's actually hilarious. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, what do you have like dream parties? Like parties that in the future you're kind of like, "Hey, this is who I want to cater to. Like this is what I want to do."
Dream parties. Um, I feel like I kind of already do that with the anime scene,
Mhm.
honestly. Um, I'll just say kind of because it's not really to the extent that I want it to be. But that's definitely the crowd that I want to cater to. That's definitely the crowd that I feel the most loving vibes out of.
Right.
Nothing wrong with the other scenes or such, but like that one is definitely more. It's definitely happier. I can only listen to goth music so much before I personally start getting depressed. Honestly, going into like The Cure or Metallica or even Cradle of Filth, do that for 8 hours a day. You kind of want a little bit of enigma later on, you know.
Yeah, you
So,
gotta you gotta have that enigma.
like okay, I want some, instead of like you know feeling like a Victorian vampire drinking wine every day. Sometimes like what, he is fine. You want to switch it up a little bit. So, but I do want to make them bigger. I do want to make them better. Um, we are planning to throw a formal anime event next year.
I
So
think I saw that. Did you already
yeah,
announce that? I saw that. That's exciting. Like a
yeah,
masquerade.
we only announced a save the dates kind of ad. So
That'll be cool.
we're yeah, so we're really excited for that. We want to blow it out of the water. I mean, people have been asking us to do a formal event for a long while now, and we finally got the funds for it. We finally have um, the performers who are willing to go for it to help us out with it. So here goes nothing.
Yeah,
you know.
that'll be exciting.
Mhm.
That's kind of like the rave community for me. Like I love my rave friends. I love the ravers. They're really COVID kind of ruined the rave scene. Um because everybody came back and they just wanted to party, and so like the rave scene kind of took a little bit of a step back. Like the community took a little bit of a step back because it was just like a bunch of bros getting wasted at parties and getting like too much, and like there was no plur anymore. So like a lot of people, um for my listeners that don't know what plur is, it means peace, love, unity, and respect. And that's like a big mantra in the rave community. So after COVID, the rave community kind of, like the community behind it, the plur community, sort of took a little bit of a step back because they were tired of going to festivals where people were just being dicks. They were just like constantly just like being like starting fights, causing problems and stuff. So like people have been kind of going a
Mm.
little bit more underground lately, and that's why like I love the goth community. I love goth music. I love goth lifestyle, you know, fashion. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna be like I'm like a spooky little raver at heart because I just love that community so much. They're so positive, they're so welcoming, they're fun. The craziest shit happens at raves, and I love that sporadic sort of like somebody dresses as a dinosaur, and then there's like a, I don't know, a Jurassic Park, you know, conga line going on through the entire like festival grounds where people all have fans and they're just like this in a line, and they're just following this guy dressed as a dinosaur, and he's got like a whistle, and it's like a party, and like just the most sporadic things like that happen at raves, and there's just something magical about people in a moment that are just let their silly flags fly. I love that, and I feel like the anime community kind of has that too, in a fun
Yeah.
way, because like the most random things happen at cosplay conventions, like, and everybody just it's like it's I don't know how to describe it. It's magical fandom moments that
Yeah.
happen, and it just makes me go, oh well, I love this kind of stuff because it doesn't happen in real life. Like we don't get those moments in the normal, like just our day to day. But I know that if I go to an anime convention or a rave or a festival or a burn event, I know that but somebody's going to be doing something weird and I'm here for it. Like, so end of the day, I think it's really cool what you're doing and catering to all these really cool events. I'm actually kind of excited to see how your formal comes out. So, what does Kaizen mean?
Kaizen means it's actually rebranding because we used to be called the Vault KC. What was that, like almost 2 years ago ish? I
Right.
think I would say that. But Kaizen, what it means, it's a Japanese word, and it means to rise again, and not just rising again, but rising again and moving forward.
Right.
Um, so when we rebranded, it was just, small story short, me and my partner at the time, my business partner, we split up. He wanted to do his own thing, and I'm like, you know what, that's true because I want to do my thing. So we split, and like our assets were divided almost in half, honestly. So I'm like, all right, well, we want to make this happen. This is the little that we got, So it's
Right.
like starting all over almost. So, um, but it's almost I would say it is a poetic rebranding of starting over, rising again, and then pushing forward.
Like a phoenix.
Hmm.
You're having your phoenix moment.
Yeah.
It's really cool. If you had, I guess this is going to be kind of a loaded question. If you had infinite amounts of money, what would the plan be?
If I had infinite amount of
I I would
honestly,
personally, I would love to open, you know that vampire cafe that they have in Tokyo?
mm,
That's like my dream. But in the States.
that's what you
Like
would do.
I would love to do that. But like it would be a nightclub at night, and
Hmm.
like a gothy spooky nightclub at night. Obviously we'd rent the venue, but like that's probably my dream. Like if I had
Okay.
infinite amounts of money, what would you do?
I would do a couple things. Our main goal is definitely to open up our own venue as well.
Right.
Maybe like a three-story building with in each floor having different subgenres of music playing. One could be
Fun.
goth, one could be anime, one could be so and so. Um, that'll be like the immediate purchase, but for like long-term purchase, I would actually want to build renewable energy factories in places like countries that don't have much energy, like say like the poor places of South America and poor places of Africa. I want to build companies that clean water and provide electricity, um, gas even if needed. That would be that would be where the bulk of my money would be going to,
That's
honestly.
that's pretty noble and super sick. I appreciate that. That's a great answer. Um Man, imagine if we had infinite amounts of money, you know? the
Mm-hmm.
world would be a much different place, I think. So, what are some of your inspirations for Kaizen and your business just in general?
Well, my inspirations are definitely community growth, honestly. I say that because um, Kansas City has always been there for me in some way. Um, like through thick and thin, kind of personal stuff that I've been through in the past. There's been random strangers have come up to me, like if I'm just like crying in the middle of a park or so, and random strangers of Kansas City coming up to me, giving me some motivation and inspiration, examples of what they gone through, and then they leave, never, and I never see them again. So Kansas City has always treated me right, despite what people say, like, "Oh, I hate the city," and such. But like, honestly, it's been working for me. Um, so this is my way of like giving back to Kansas City. I'm not my how would you say my
So, you're
love
not.
language is not like lovey-dovey. It's not kissing or touching or there's another form, but
Gifting?
mine,
Yours is
yeah,
a gifting.
yeah, mine's just more of a like an act of service. I think that's what
Oh,
it's called.
yep.
Mhm. So that is my way of showing love. And when it comes to every event that we throw, that is me saying, I love you, Kansas City. You know, this is for you. You know, this it's not for me because honestly, half the time that when we throw in events, I'm working those events. I'm honestly not enjoying them as much as everyone else is,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not for me. It's for everyone else. Um,
There's something to be said about. So wait, you're not originally from here.
I am.
Oh, you are. Okay.
Yeah.
There's some. I'm not originally from Kansas City, and there's something to be said about the people here. And over the last 3 years, 3 years I've been here because this is my first experience here. I've I've realized that it's kind of its own magical place. I've lived on coast to coast. I've traveled a lot, and at the end of the day, I've kind of made this my home, and I love the people here, and I want to give back to the community myself, which is why things like the ferry barter market we started. I There's a girl named Mycelia Mushroom Fairy, for those listening, in the area, who is an artist, and she dresses as a fairy and she gives away her art. And I started working with her about 6 months ago, and we have created these things called the fairy barter market here. And basically, there's no money exchange, none. People bring things to trade. They bring art, they bring craft supplies, they bring tools like paintbrushes and things that they're not using, new, some used, or like little trinkets, jewelry that they've made, things that just don't provide them any sort of use anymore, books, so on and so forth. They all come together and we trade. We trade these items, which is really interesting to me in the economy that we currently live in. It's a free event, but at the end of the day, it's like a big deal to people to not have to pay for things, that they can go, like, I'll trade some craft supplies that I'm not using that I ended up picking up, and I'm like, I don't like these anymore, and I'm not going to use them, so let me pass them along. Like, let me give them somebody else can give them a home, and somebody else can use these things. And so I'll trade like craft supplies for craft supplies. I've gotten, all sorts of things. I've traded art for pottery and blankets and all sorts of things, just like that. I'm like, oh, I could use this, and other people feel the same way about my stuff. So
Mhm.
our bar is closing after the first of the year, which is really a bummer. And Mycelia and I would like to keep this community, because it's a community event. Like, we want to keep this thing alive. So we've been trying to find venues for it. But like, I feel like in a way that's sort of our way of giving back to the community, because
Okay. Yeah.
nobody does that. Nobody does like barter markets. Like, nobody does trade anymore. Nobody does and takes their services and trade for other services. And I feel like that's something that, as a people, as a civilization we should really get back to, because
Mm-hmm.
capitalism's a double-edged sword, but at the end of the day, if you have things that you can offer like candles for light or blankets for warmth, and somebody else needs that, I feel like it's such a great thing for people to do that, and people love it. Like we've been getting tons of people coming out, and our next one is going to be in February, and it's going to be actually even bigger. So it's kind of this crazy thing, and I feel like even though we're unable to do things in a certain space now, it's something that I would like to keep alive, if only for the community that I've grown to love and appreciate out here. So I totally feel you on that like level of I love it here and I want to give back. It doesn't make us any money, and we're probably gonna end up having to rent venues and stuff just to do it, but like it's something
Mm-hmm.
that I think is important, you know? So
Yeah, for sure.
I feel that. And there are a lot of things about living here that I've realized, like, people are nice. They're genuinely actually still nice here, and that's cool. People are giving, they're warm. I mean, it's not perfect. No place is perfect. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm home for the first time in a very, very long time, because I have moved so much. So, I mean, if there's something to be said, it's pretty magical. So I understand wanting to give back to it as much as you possibly can. If you could give more just to your community, like I feel like that's an important conversation people don't necessarily have. Like, how can I give back to my community? What would you do? Like, if you could give more to the community as a whole.
If I could give more to the community, I would definitely. And it's kind of, I guess this kind of goes back to a secondary answer for your question of what would I do if I had an endless amount of money.
Right.
Um, I would definitely open up more businesses. It could be a number of different kind of businesses, from marketing firms to even I could clinics. I'd want to open up more things, not just those things that can actually help out the community, but at the same time, uh, give them jobs and such. So, and well-paying jobs, not just, the 12, 15 an hour kind of bullshit jobs.
Right.
Uh, that's what would really want to do, is open up as many um, companies or even firms. This way everyone can get a job, and also provide resources for them on how to get those jobs, or how to get qualifications for those jobs. Maybe even throw in some free courses on
Ooh, that's
getting like
classes are a good idea.
yeah, like getting like certified on something. Uh,
Right.
I I've personally taken some free courses myself, and just to handle like bloodborne pathogen stuff, how to handle nuclear waste stuff. Why did I take those courses? I have no idea, but they were free, and now I have all that experience in it. I've been certified in it and such, but they were all for free, and I would not have found them out if it wasn't for like a word of mouth from a whisper somewhere else, honestly. And those kind of things they shouldn't be whispers. They should be loud, because these are life-changing kind of jobs and certifications that one that many people that we know could need, or could use.
You're almost like talking about offering trades, like trade schools for free. That people
Hmm.
should, I think people that should be provided for free for sure. That people
Yeah,
should be able to like learn a trade, which can help them get into something. Schools are so expensive.
yeah.
Um, and like offering a free trade, like I do craft nights sometimes with my store. I've taught so many like kids that actually have showed up for the craft nights, like how to use just basic tools. And like that to me means so much, because that kid is going to take that experience and apply it somewhere else. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I taught them that. Like I gave them those tools to do other things and succeed in that department. So like I think that's important. I think that's a really good giving back to your community thing, is like teaching people things. What inspired you? Okay, so now you've got the Kaizen sort of thing. You've got your clubs and you're giving back to the community as much as you can, and you're doing all these really interesting things, and you're touching on all these alternative scenes that don't necessarily like get a lot of attention sometimes, especially in the Midwest of all places. So that's
Mhm.
super cool. What sort of inspired you on the other side of that? What sort of inspired you to kind of start Black Vatican? Like obviously that was before all of the other stuff. What brought you to that point?
Well, Black Vatican, that story is definitely a much more serious story. It started off when I think I was like 20 years old, so like roughly 10 years ago, almost 11. Um, and that was one, I didn't like the music that I heard every day on the radio stations, so I got really bored off of that. So I'm like, yeah, I want to make my own music now. So that was one of the inspirations, honestly. It's just boredom out of what I'm hearing. The other was because I wanted to express my voice a bit better, um, and in a darker way, honestly. Because, everyone's gone through shit, and I have encyclopedias worth of shit that I've gone through. And I wanted to express that in my own voice with music, something that I know how to do and such. And I wanted to kind of like kind of show that there's a comfort that there's somebody else out there listening to you. Like if when somebody is down in the dumps because this happened, that happened, horrible things happen in life. Um, the first thing that they tend to feel is uh, lonesome. They're alone in this dark trauma that they just went through, and I want to just let them know that like you're not alone, kind of thing.
Right. So Black Vatican is essentially the product of trauma and giving back again.
Pretty much, yeah.
I feel that. So you are a how many instruments do you play? Because I'm looking at this, it looks like you play a lot.
I play the keyboards and I play the bass guitar and I do the vocals.
Are there other instruments that you play that weren't necessarily that you record with that you just play just because for fun?
Um, no, I'll say those are my three primary ones.
Okay. So when you got into this, what sort of inspired the name Black Vatican?
That came out because we wanted to emphasize on what we're all about, and what we want to talk about are things that people are very uncomfortable talking about. So yeah, we are hitting on people's nerves. We are hitting on people's shadows. We're hitting on the shadows of everyone else around them and such. And what a lot of people tend to do is like sweep it under the rug kind of thing. And honestly, the very first group of people, I want to say group of people, but organization that comes to mind that does that notoriously would be the Vatican. So, we can't hide those accusations of what they do to people. So,
Right.
so that's the very first name that came to mind was the Vatican. They tend to do that. Well, what's the dark side of the Vatican? A Black Vatican, and that's where it came out. Honestly, that's how the name developed.
So you, how long has your band been in existence?
Proper existence would have to be, 'cause we're just a thought, like 10 years ago. I would say we existed for maybe, let's say 6 to 7 years.
You have a fair amount of music. Are you gonna be releasing any new stuff soon?
We've released almost everything that we needed to for now, so we can start preparing for tours and shows throughout 2024. but we do have a couple more songs in mind. We have like maybe two, maybe three more songs in mind that we want to release. Um, we've been getting a bit more creative with our style. Um, like our earlier, like our EP, they're definitely much more symphonic, definitely much more uh, intensely goth. Um,
You can hear the
and
difference when you go from one to the other. There's obviously like you've kind of evolved. So I guess when it comes down to all of this, you've obviously you really express yourself through the band. What sort of, I guess, growth have you had creating Black Vatican from then to now as a person? Like, what is this? How does this affect you?
it's in a very deep level, honestly, because and it could also be somewhat heard through our music. Um, like the first EP, for example, would have a lot of inspiration. The lyrics really talk about a lot of inspiration that there's hope, that there's something better out there. That's what a lot of the lyrics could be added up to, honestly. Same thing with the music and same thing with the atmosphere of it. The in their album was at the Arcana Lament album. That one was definitely much more aggressive. That one was actually that one actually shows that I was going through a time that I felt like there was no hope. That's reflecting like how the first EP was showing, hoping that there was something. The second one was more of like I feel like there is no hope. So our lyrics were definitely much more aggressive. Our beats, our rhythms, everything was definitely much more aggressive.
Did you
Um,
start this before or after COVID? Because I feel
this
like that
is
has.
before.
Okay, so doing your music, what did you? I guess we kind of always touch on COVID because it was such a big rift in everybody's lives.
Mhm.
During COVID, what did you do? Did you make more music? Did you write? Did you kind of do your own thing? Like, what did you do?
Well, when it was during COVID, yeah, I did work on some music. Not as much as I wanted to, unfortunately. Um, I was mostly busy with doing Kaizen stuff because that's honestly when Kaizen was born. Um, but when at the time it was called the Vault KC. But that's when we started doing our thing with the vaults. So that really hindered a lot of things when it comes to music. But we did have a lot of ideas already in mind. Um, and we started evolving our sound around those ideas. We started
So
incorporating different genres into it. Sorry, what was that?
were you during COVID? So you said you were starting the vault, which
Hmm.
developed into Kaizen. What I mean, everybody was under basically lockdown. So you were just making deals and talking to people for post COVID. Like we had no idea how long it was going to last. You were just doing it anyway.
No, around the time, it wasn't for post-COVID, it was actually for during COVID. And a lot of people were telling us that's like the worst time to start such a business and such. Honestly, that was the best time to have ever started a business for us, at least, because our business is literally all about creating events and bringing in people to venues, promoting those venues and all that such. And
So you kind of had your
around
pick.
yeah, and around COVID, a lot of people weren't going to venues. So those venues were actually reaching out to us as a service to like, hey, bring in people. And that's what we did throughout COVID, and that's how we got a reputation of being a reliable promotion company.
So I would like to also take a moment to tell my listeners that the COVID that everyone experienced was very different. When I was
Hmm.
on the West Coast, we were under lockdown for almost 2 years. In the Midwest, it was like 6 to 10 months. It wasn't even
Hmm.
nearly as long. So, depending on your location of where you were for COVID, a lot of people were like, it seems like people were doing terrible things during COVID, but in reality, most of it was done for the Midwest before any other location, mostly because the
Yeah,
Midwest was over it. But like, I think people need to understand that just COVID. restrictions were so much different depending on location of where people were.
Oh
So,
yeah, and with the events that we threw during COVID, yeah, we did still have to follow the guidelines because we had guidelines here too, like
right.
the whole 6 feet apart, the whole mask mandates. Uh, there's sanitizers everywhere. So yeah, we played it safe, and of course we didn't encourage people to get out of their comfort zone in a sense of like their safety zone, I should say. Like if y'all ever felt like it's still too risky, like then we say like, all right, no worries, we'll see you once COVID restrictions are out. But
Right.
other than that, the events that we threw were definitely for those who respected each other's boundaries or respected each other's safety and security. That's something that we held up very top notch because that's the last thing we want anyone to do is get sick.
Right.
Um, and once the restrictions started lifting, of course the people started coming out more, and of course we always, even up to today, there's still some people out there who prefer to wear masks and such, and we're like, hey, go for it. Honestly, like you better than anyone else. So wear your mask if you want to. Um, it's encouraged to look out for yourself. So that's our high priority is everyone's safety. So
Right.
we played it by the rules no matter what.
So once you got all that basically done, you then got to focus on Black Vatican as a
Hmm.
separate entity. So did COVID, I guess, change your mental? Did you get to like? How do I word this? Let me word this correctly. Did you kind of like look inward a little bit for for yourself as well, or were you just doing things for other people?
I was doing things mostly for other people. That's fortunately slash unfortunately. Fortunately because um, I was in the mindset that I can help other people and such, and I can do things for them.
Right.
Unfortunately, was because I didn't focus on myself when I should have. Um, because I wouldn't say COVID took a toll on me. Me, naturally, I'm an introvert, so being away from a lot of people for long periods of time was pretty nice for me, you know.
Yeah.
So, but around that same time, I was with some very I was with some very bad people, with a lot of toxicity and such, and very manipulative and almost abusive. And that is where I should have figured out what the red flags were. That is where I should have figured, like, I should focus on me. I've been doing things for others this whole time. I haven't really been focusing on myself. I haven't gotten rid of these bad apples in my life and my circle. Um, and it was making a toll on me. Um, so I guess the toll that COVID did somewhat do for me wasn't necessarily the virus itself going around, but it was the people. Um,
A lot of
while everyone was,
a lot
yeah,
of
while
people
everyone
showed
was,
their true colors during that time.
yeah, like that's like putting it lightly too. Um, that's of course COVID forces people to stay in their home and stuff like that. Forces everyone's circles to be small and secluded. Unfortunately, I was trapping myself in my own cage with the wrong people, and I'm like, oh my God, I am like, I was going into a dark place. I'm like, I got to do something. So
So Black
yeah,
Vatican kind of helped you express yourself and get out of that. Is that what?
definitely, definitely. Black Vatican, music in general is definitely always my go-to to express things. At that time, this was the person I trapped myself with the person I trapped myself with was a toxic, abusive ex, and I'm pretty sure we all know someone who's been through that or such. Same story, just to say the least. So I would create music, I would make different rhythms and sounds like that, and even she would get all like, well, why are you saying lyrics like this and that? I wasn't bashing her, but I was expressing what I was feeling, whether in a very neutral, general way, you know. And the feeling was bad. The feeling was overall bad. And I said like, well, this is what I feel. I'm a musician. This is artistry. Um, if the shoe fits, you know, then I can do something about it. Honestly, like, what am I supposed to say? Um, but luckily, Black Vatican was always there for me to express it, even when I was afraid to express it because of people like her and such. Like, oh well, you know, they might retaliate or they might do something and such against you. I'm like, I don't care at this point. Like, this has to be said. This is a message that needs to be said because I'm pretty sure there's other people feeling the exact same way. And that's how Black Vatican started to begin with, is to express these kind of things and to make sure that that people feel like they're not alone in these kind of things.
Right.
So
That's awesome. I'm glad that you got to. Well, I mean, obviously the relationship was not great, but it's a light that comes out of a darkness, right? So
for sure,
you use really shitty situations that a lot of us have gone through in our lives. We've grown from, and you can, as an artist, you can express yourself through your music with that darkness. And I mean, there are so many artists and musicians and just painters, everybody. A lot of them express that darkness in such unique and different ways. And I think it's really important. I think it's an important mental health thing in general to be able to express yourself in such a way that you're creating positive out of negative. I mean, most artists, that's what they do. They create a positive situation out of a negative situation. And I think that going back to COVID, I think because a lot of people had time on their hands, a lot of people had the opportunity to sort of grow as people. I always joke that COVID was the best and worst thing to happen in my life because it made me realize what I wanted wasn't what I had. And it sounds similar to your story in that eventually we kind of let go of old baggage and traumas and things that were not generating any sort of positivity in our lives and have grown as people. I feel like it's kind of like, do you ever hear the phrase "the age of Aquarius"? Do you know what I'm talking
yes.
about? I feel like that sort of kind of applied in a weird way because a lot of people went into this really dark thing and came out pretty enlightened as far as what they want to do like in their lives. Not saying that that's like happening right now, but it could be. I don't know. It depends on what you believe. Depends on your spirituality. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting that we've all kind of realigned our goals in all at the same time. Like, that's kind of crazy, right? Like, we all decided,
Yeah.
hey, right now, this is the time.
Yeah.
And I think life is too short to be miserable. And I'm glad that you got out of that, but I'm also glad that you poured that darkness into something positive because not a lot of people do that. That's really hard. So,
Yeah, it's definitely. And that kind of goes like with this whole saying. What's it go? It goes something like, you can, and this relates a lot to our style of music. You can only ask for help for so much. You can only, you know, try to gently talk to people and ask for assistance for so long until your next preference is to scream.
right. Do you think that you've now moved past that darkness in Black Vatican and now you're expressing something different?
I would say so, for sure. Like, I would say the last of, I think it's the last of that darkness has been expressed with our last two, three songs that we released. Like, we put all our heart and soul into it. Like, so there shouldn't be anything left over of that life. But as far as for future music, not sure because if we have nothing to talk about, then I think mission accomplished. I think we can do something else. I don't know. Um, because I do know like our guitarist Cole, he has some things that he wants to talk about as well, and sometimes we'll take turns on like leading on the production of a song. I want to talk about this, and I'll feel like the rhythm or melody should sound like that, so I would lead the song, and he just plays along. Sometimes he would say the exact same thing, like, "Hey, I want to talk about this or that instead. So I want to lead it. I want to make the guitars like this. You just follow along as well." I'm like, okay. Um,
I love that because it's like a
so
shared diary
yeah, it
or
really
like a
is.
shared journal of your journeys. That's pretty cool. I love that.
Mhm,
That's awesome. What are some of
yeah.
your favorite songs?
Um, from other artists,
No,
I
from
would
your
say,
yeah, of your songs of
oh,
the of Black Vatican. What are some of your favorite Black Vatican songs? Sorry, let me clarify.
I mean, well, it's kind of hard to say because each song has a special place in our hearts. But that's just speaking as an artist.
Right.
Speaking as like if I didn't even have like if I was being part of Black Vatican and I was just some average Spotify listener just skimming through, I would have to say Lady of Dis. That was in our EP, and that was one of our very, very, very first songs that we even made. The cheapest equipment, the cheapest quality, everything was cheap about us. Even our clothes were cheap. We didn't have no good sense of fashion back then. um, but we made it work very well. I would say Lady of Dis and um, I would say Dreams of Hecate. That's in our album of Arcana Lament.
So you're on Spotify, right? So
Yeah,
people can listen to you on Spotify. Okay. I will put a link to your Spotify and all that other stuff in the description as always for the podcast. Um, what I guess what projects are you currently working on?
currently right now we are working on one that's we're making it very waltz-like, kind of like the Vampiric Waltz song. Um, but this one's a bit different because we're gonna want to make it as how to describe it. Waltz songs, they go by like rhythms of threes, 1 2 3, 1 2 3. This one, it starts off in threes, but then it goes into fours, and it stays that way with the rhythm going in threes, but the beat is going in fours.
Oh,
Uh, we've only we've only heard one musician do that successfully, and we just gotta like, okay, we want to try that too. It might suck, but um, if it worst case scenario, we can just switch it back to threes, keep the beat in threes and everything, and the song would uh
that's
flow
interesting.
smoothly. hmm So yeah, I would say, let's see, there we go. Um, One similar to, and it goes back to the song that I was actually going to highlight. It's Silence Neath Laughter.
Okay.
That one, yeah, that one I threw everything out. Everything that was in my mind and my heart and my soul, I threw everything out in that song. So,
That's the important one.
um, yeah, Silence Neath Laughter.
Okay.
Um, and another project that we're working on is one that's actually cumbia related. Um, I'm Hispanic, Mexican background, and I grew up with cumbia music and all the other subgenres of Latino and Hispanic music. And I've always loved cumbia. So our next song is actually going to have some strong elements of cumbia in it,
That's cool.
mixed with vampirism and goth style. So
Oh, I'm here for it. I can't wait to hear it. It sounds cool. All right. So let's wrap this up a little bit. How what are you currently working on a bigger scale right now? What's next for Kaizen? What's next for you? What's next for just anything?
a bigger scale would have to be expanding our resume with Kaizen. In other words, we'll be working with much bigger partners in the near future. we already do like a lot of pre-parties for conventions, but we're gonna maybe work with their own after parties and such. So we want to do that. We want to throw a bigger event, starting off with the waltz that's coming up in February. And for those listening, it is called Queen Serenity's Moonlight Waltz. It'll be on February 23rd. That should be the last Friday of February, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So we want to throw more similar events like that. As far as for Black Vatican, we will be doing a couple more shows, and we'll also be, fingers crossed, we already have a promoter that works with us on the other side of the world. Go to Europe and tour over there because we already got some offers to do so. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your open mind, and hope to see you around KC.
Thank you for joining us today on the Coffin Lounge podcast. Thank you for putting up with my short break. Actually, it was a long break. I promise we're back. I have lots of things to share with you, lots of guests to share. We are on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, all the streaming platforms. Make sure you subscribe, you like the stuff, you make comments. That helps me and the algorithm. And I will see you on the next one. Thank you all for joining me so much. Have a good night.
Yeah.